Well, yeah, as Steve said, I'm Lucy Kennery, and I'm going to be talking to you about the Lower Windrush Valley Project. Really, sort of what I'm going to cover in today's presentation is a little bit of introduction to the project and what we do, share some of our recent projects. I've tried to stick to the sort of more wildlife recording sort of themes of projects that we've done over the last couple of years. And then a quick mention of some of the sites in the Lower Windrush that you might like to visit. And then also a shameless plug for some of our upcoming events that we've got going on in April. So as Steve said, the Lower Windrush Valley is in West Oxfordshire. We cover just 6 parishes. So you can see on the map on the left there, the sort of red area to the south of Witney, that's our core project area. The project area was sort of selected and set up off the back of the sort of huge amount of gravel extraction that's happened in the area. And you can see on the map on the right-hand side, we now have, and actually they're not even all on this map, they get out of date very quickly in the Lower Windrush, but we've got 60 lakes now in the landscape. So what we do is a combination really of these 3 things. So conservation and land management, so that's sort of landscape and biodiversity initiatives, improving access to the countryside, and community engagement and learning opportunities. So the majority of our conservation and land management activities are based on our 2 nature reserves that we manage. So that's Stand Lake Common and Rushy Common nature reserves. They're both ex-minerals sites. So they're sort of fairly similar in size, actually, sort of between 25 and 30 hectares. And they both have a large lake, although there are a lot of differences sort of outside of that as well. And we've run various habitat creation and restoration projects over the years. So pond creation, hedge laying, pollarding willows, grassland restoration. And then also research, normally in sort of coordination with other organisations like the Freshwater Habitats Trust or TVERC. And I'll mention one of those more recent projects later on. So the improving access to the countryside theme of our work, that might be things like improving the surfacing or the signage on our current rights of way network, and also our permissive rights of way, because one of the things that the project has worked towards over the last 20 years is opening new footpaths as well. The majority of those have been, again, through the sort of planning process. So when there has been planning applications for minerals, sort of quarries, we've then been able to secure new permissive footpaths and bridleways. So we sort of keep an eye on those with our wardens, and we'll make improvements to those. We've got interpretation panels across the valley as well that have sort of more in-depth information about what people are seeing and sort of connecting footpaths and what wildlife's in the area. And we also have a series of leaflets as well that you'll find in some of the local information centres or pubs, but also all as PDFs on our websites. And there's an example on the right hand side of the screen there of one of them. We do things like replacing stiles, either with a kissing gate if it's necessary for stock control, or even just gaps to make paths more accessible. And then we also work with landowners to open new footpaths. And then the sort of third part of what we do is the community engagement and learning opportunities. So that's things like leading guided walks, running family events. We have an annual forum meeting, which historically has always been something that we've done in one of the village halls in the project area. But for the last 2 years, that's been something that we've done via Zoom for obvious reasons. And that's hopefully we'll be able to do that in person again at some point. And then we'll have visits from schools and other groups to our sites as well. And we also have the Friends of the Lower Windrush Valley. So we have quite an active volunteer group. They really help us out with a lot of different tasks. That the project itself has one staff member, which is me. So having this volunteer network, we've now got around sort of 40 volunteers that are regular, some more regular than others, and depending on what type of activity they're helping us with. But we've got a task group, so they help out with things like scrub clearance or coppicing, or you can see a picture of siding there as well on one of our reserves. We have the footpath and nature reserve wardens that I mentioned, and then we have volunteers helping us out with surveys as well and recording. I think quite a lot of your bird records, your whatever, how many 100,000 bird records that you have, quite a few of them are from our nature reserves, because we have bird hides, and quite a few people will regularly record in those, and then we have volunteers who help us type all those up, and they get sent off to TVERC. So okay, so then just some of our recent projects and activities. Kingfisher Quest was something that we ran over the summer of 2020, with the idea being that it would give us an idea of where kingfishers were in the valley, but also be a way of engaging people and getting them out and looking at their sort of local watery environments and paying attention to what they were seeing. It fell at a bit of a funny time. Obviously, we'd sort of planned the project at the beginning of 2020 and then went into lockdown, and we'd had the idea to get sort of schools and fishing and water sports clubs, because there's quite a few in the area involved, and we weren't able to do that in the end, but we ran the project anyway, just using people sort of out on their daily walks, submitting us sightings. So we had 46 sightings reported, and you can see up sort of in the Whitney area up here, there was a kind of hotspot of where we received the most sightings. So all of that data again was shared with TVERC, and we published this map and some sort of analysis on our website as well. And then something else we did during 2020 to keep us busy in the office while we couldn't get out and run some of our normal activities was to complete this biodiversity opportunity review of the Lower Windrush. So how we did that was we asked TVERC to use their data and information that they hold to produce a phase 1 habitat map for us and update their mapping for our project area. And we then used that data that they provided to us to create further maps looking at bat habitats, and then picking out sort of individual key habitats to look at how they were distributed and think about where the opportunities were. And that was all written up into a report, which again is available on our website. We also ran a bird nest box project. Again, this was in 2020. We sent out a call for people to sponsor nest boxes. So we had lots of lovely people come forward and give us some money to sponsor this project. So they sponsored a nest box. We purchased 12 of the smaller nest boxes, and I haven't actually included a photo here, but we put 2 little owl boxes up as well. And these are along the Windrush Path in Stanlake. We had 4 old sort of wooden boxes that were already in place, but we installed the additional 12. And then unfortunately, we weren't able to get out and run a session in May 2020. But in 2021, we ran a ringing session, which was very successful, actually. We ringed 100 birds, all great tits or blue tits, across the 2 visits, which we invited our nest box sponsors to. So that was a really nice little project, and got kind of people an up close view as well of how their boxes were being used. So this time last year, we launched our Reptile Survey group. We recruited 10 volunteers from the local communities to the Lower Windrush. They were trained up via, we did 1 online sort of training and information session, and then followed up with individual site visits with each of the volunteers to their sites that they were going to be recording at. We had 7 sites. They were surveyed between April and October 2021, and that included Rushy Common Nature Reserve, 4 local churchyards and 3 allotment sites. We only recorded 1 reptile species, which was grass snake. We had 84 records across 3 of the sites, and actually several of the sites, well, the other 4 sites, we unfortunately didn't record any reptiles. But what we're planning to do is resurvey some of those sites this year, and then we're also going to be beginning to survey Stand Lake Common, so our other nature reserve as well will be including in this year's surveys. And then this is a sort of in progress project. We're working with the Stand Lake and Brighthampton Nature Recovery Network group. So they launched a year or so ago, and then we've been working with them for the last 6 months or so on a project, TOE-funded project, to create a wildflower bank at the village recreation ground. So there's been opportunities for the communities to get involved with planting that, and then we'll be looking at monitoring and training volunteers up to Scythe to be able to manage that site as well going forwards. And then we've also used some of the TOE funds to purchase some bird bat and insect hotel boxes, which have been put at the school, the church and the recreation ground. And we're now also working with that group and the next village along, Northmoor Village Hall, to develop some project creating some pollinator patches as well outside the village halls. Yeah, so some places to visit in the Lower Windrush. I mean, there'll be people, I suppose, from across the whole of the TVERC area here. So some people will probably be quite familiar with the Lower Windrush already, and others it might be quite a distance, you know, for you to travel here. But here's just a sort of few examples of some of the places that you might like to come and see. So there's Witney Lake and Country Park, which is managed by Witney Town Council, and it's just on the outskirts of Witney. That's sort of totally open to the public, that site. It's made up of, there's a large lake. Again, it's one of our gravel pits. And then the country park sort of adjacent, there's lots of footpaths, good sort of connections into Witney as well. We've then got the Windrush Path, which we have 2 sections of at the moment. So this is from Witney down to Hardwick, and then there's another section towards the south end of the valley and past one of our reserves in Stand Lake. And one of the long-term aims of the project is to connect those 2 sections of footpath up. So hopefully one day you'll have a route all the way from Witney down to the Thames. There's then Dick's Pit Lake and the Devil's Quoits. And I mention this because it's probably a bit more interest to those with an interest of history, but it's something people often don't know is there. There is a permissive path that allows you to walk around the edge of Dick's Pit Lake, and there is the Devil's Quoits, which is a stone circle. It was originally built 4,000 to 5,000 years ago, but restored in 2008, I think. So it's 30 sort of large stones in a 75-meter, I think, diameter circle. So it's a little bit like the Lower Windrush Valley's mini Stonehenge. So that's worth a visit as well. Tar Lakes is up next to one of our nature reserves, Rushy Common, and this is again a site that we manage and is open to the public. It's got a gravel path around one of the lakes that allows sort of access for people with prams or in wheelchairs, and there's a car park there as well. So that's the photo in the bottom right hand side is of Tar Lakes. And then last but not least, our bird hides are 2 nature reserves. So our reserves aren't open to the public, with the exception of the bird hides that we look after, that look over the sites. You can purchase a key for the bird hides from our website. It's £15, and that gives you access to the hides at both of our nature reserves, sort of 365 days a year. They're open all the time. And that's where a lot of our bird recording comes from in the Lower Windrush, and that's what gets all sort of submitted to TVERC once our volunteers enter it. Right, yes, so last but not least, bit of a plug for some of our upcoming events that I thought might be of interest to some of the people on the call. We're celebrating our 20-year anniversary by running a series of events in April from the 18th to the 24th. I've put a copy of the programme up here, but it's quite small, so I've sort of individually written out each of the events as well. But if you are interested in finding out a little bit more, I've put the link there, a web link at the bottom, which will take you to the programme and a booking page for all of those. And thank you very much. I'm afraid I can't, the way that I've shared my screen, I have no idea how long I've taken, Steve.
Lucy, thank you for that. No, good timing. I think we're on track. Yeah, no, very interesting. Thanks for sharing that with us all. I had a couple of questions come through. One was when you were talking about the little owl boxes, did you find if you got any occupants of those? Were they used?
Not last year. So they were put up at the beginning of last year, beginning of 2021, and no occupants last year, and obviously haven't checked this year, but keep our fingers crossed.
Okay, thank you. And Catherine Page, she asked, I think in relation to the Stand Lake Nature Recovery Project, she was interested in what was the approximate annual spend for that project and where did you get the funding from?
So specifically for the Stand Lake and the Nature Recovery Network. So the Stand Lake and Brighthampton Nature Recovery Network is a separate group to the Lower Windrush Valley Project. The project that we've been working with them on to deliver in Stand Lake that's funded by the Trust for Oxfordshire's Environment. So we applied for a grant from them in the middle of last year, and I believe I'm completely blanked on the figure. I think it's about £2,000 that we got from TVERC. That's terrible. I can't remember the exact figure, but yes. Oh, I've just seen her comment. No, ongoing Lower Windrush Valley Project. Right. No. Okay. So the Lower Windrush Valley Project as a whole, our annual spend varies, but it's around £60,000. And there's a mix of funding. So historically, we have secured developer funding called Section 106 funding through some of the quarries, basically, that have been that are currently still in the Lower Windrush. So we do sort of hold a pot of money secured through development. We also are hosted by Oxfordshire County Council, and they provide us with a small amount of funding each year as well. And then we apply for grants like what I was talking about from the Trust for Oxfordshire's Environment to support our ongoing work. And then, we'll occasionally, it's to a smaller degree, we'll sometimes make money from events or selling the bird hide keys, that sort of stuff. But it's mostly that developer funding and then any kind of grants that we apply for, and the county council.
That's good. Thank you. And thanks, Catherine, for clarifying.
Sorry, I went off on a tangent.
Yeah, that's all right. So I think that's all our questions. So thanks, Lucy, for sharing that. That's good.